Hi everyone, Joel here, your Vice President of Activities, and I'm here to introduce this week's Get Clued Up for our Mental Health Awareness Week, and it's all about coping with change, the things you can't control, and dealing with anxiety. Here we've got Nicola Smith, the Mental Health and Wellbeing Advisor for South Bank University. So I'm going to pass over to Nicola Smith, who will be leading us along.
Lovely, thanks very much, Joel. I'm just going to get the presentation up and ready. Okay, so welcome to this session, Get Clued Up, Navigating Changing Times. My name is Nicola Smith and I'm one of the Mental Health and Wellbeing Advisors at London South Bank University. So today's aims are to think about how we might be feeling as lockdown restrictions start to lift and things start to change, and also to think about ways you can cope as a student during these changing times. I'm also going to tell you about the support that is available to you here at LSBU. So lockdown is lifting and we are faced with a new normal, and we might be finding ourselves thinking some of the following things. So firstly, what even is normal? I think our concept of normal has really changed over this past 13, 14 months. Things have been constantly changing. So the idea of going back to normality is quite a tricky one to come to terms with, because things are still not going to feel like they were before the pandemic hit. So our concept of what is normal has changed. We might be thinking, how should I be acting? We've got so used to being restricted and behaving in a certain way that actually it's going to potentially feel a bit unusual to be acting in a different way. And likewise, we might be wondering how we should be feeling. Should we be feeling really happy that lockdown is lifting, or actually might there be some anxieties there or some more difficult, challenging emotions to deal with? So how might we feel as lockdown lifts? We might feel excited. It's obviously really great to think about being able to see friends and family again, do things we enjoy. So there's going to be an element of excitement. We might feel reflective, thinking back over what's been an extremely difficult period of time. So there might be an element of that as well. You might feel anxious. We've been so used to dealing with the kind of anxiety that comes with a global pandemic, with the restrictions that's been placed on us, and to suddenly find ourselves in a position where those restrictions have been lifted, we could experience some anxiety. We might feel sad, actually. We might feel sad when we look back on how difficult things have been. You might be apprehensive, a little nervous about doing things in a new way. It might feel strange being in a public place with lots and lots of people, for example, when we've been so used to it not being that way. We might feel relieved. We might just feel like, thank goodness this is over. Thank goodness we can return to some sort of normality. And we may feel overwhelmed as a result of all of these emotions. And also just be overwhelmed with the experience of suddenly being out there, being able to hug people again, being able to be in places that we've not been allowed to go to for some time. It's absolutely okay to feel all of these things. It's normal and it's okay, and you should allow yourself to feel this way and acknowledge your emotions. So I'm going to talk to you now about coping with this change and managing the potential worry and anxiety that you might experience. So let's have a think about how much control we have over things in our lives. And it's important to do this because we will respond differently depending on how much control we have. So there are some things in life we just simply cannot control. There are other things that we do have some control over. So I'm just going to give you some examples here. So firstly, we can't control whatever the new normal is going to look like. You know, we can't change the fact that things are going to feel a little different for a while longer. You know, there's going to still be some restrictions in place. I think things like masks on public transport will probably continue. So we're not going to be able to control the new normal. What we can control is how we spend our time and what we do within the new normal. We can't control the fact that it's very likely that there'll be blended learning moving forward, certainly for the next academic year. We obviously are going to be able to move into face-to-face teaching, but there's still going to be a lot of online learning going on as well. So we can't control that. That's something that's out of our hands. But what we can control is how we organise ourselves perhaps in that new schedule, the new way of learning. We can't control what may happen next. I think that's been really apparent for throughout the pandemic. We just can't control that. But what we can control is the thoughts that you pay attention to. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. We can't control how long any of this will last. And obviously, again, that's become extremely apparent to us throughout. But what we can control is the focus that we place on our own well-being. Likewise, thinking a little bit now about our worries. So it's really important to remember that firstly, you know, all our emotions are valid, all our worries are valid, but some worries are real, which means that they are really happening. They are actual problems that are happening to us right now. Whereas other worries are just as valid, but they're hypothetical. So it's something that you're worrying about that hasn't happened yet or isn't currently happening or may never happen. And so it's really worth reminding ourselves of this. So if we are worrying about something, let's have a think. Is this something real that's happening to me right now? In which case, is there anything I can do about it? Do I have any control? If you think that actually, no, this is a hypothetical worry, then it might be a case of thinking, well, I don't have any control over this. So therefore, you need to think about ways of trying to just let that worry go. So it's really important to kind of break things down for ourselves and consider, what is it we're worrying about? Is this a real problem for me right now? Is it a hypothetical worry? How much control do I have? And then we can start to think about how we can respond. So we will respond differently depending on our level of control. So for things that we can't control, but are nonetheless still impacting us, we need to think about emotion-focused strategies, which I'll talk about in a minute. Where we do have some control, that's where we can start to think about problem-solving and problem-focused strategies. So, for example, a problem-focused strategy might be prioritising and planning your time, maybe building structure into your week. Another example is seeking out support. So just because you have some control and you're able to think about problem-focused strategies doesn't mean you have to do that alone. You can absolutely seek out support, talk to peers, talk to your support network, talk to professionals and those around you who could advise you. And another example of problem-focused strategies is thinking about decision-making skills. So one way of making decisions could be to write down all of the advantages and disadvantages for each of the options that you have before you, and then that will allow you to decide as objectively as you can. And do also remember that you can always go back to the drawing board and start again and try again, and that's okay, because we quite often have to learn by error and by trial. So an example of emotion-focused strategies. So this is where we have no control over something, but it's really impacting us. Therefore, what we need to do is really ramp up thinking about how we can manage the feelings and the emotions that we're experiencing as a result of the issue that's presenting itself to us and we can't control. So things like meditation and relaxation is really important. Also, allowing yourself worry time. This could be where you literally allow a set period of time where you think about the concerns and worries you have. You might like to write them down. A lot of people find things like journaling can be really helpful to kind of get your worries out of your system and get them onto paper. You might then want to screw that bit of paper up and throw it away as a kind of gesture of I'm letting these worries go. But just allowing yourself that time to do it means that you're acknowledging your worries, but you're not going to then carry them around with you for the rest of your day. You're going to kind of put them to the side. And it's really important, sort of whilst you're doing all of this, to really acknowledge your emotions. Remember that it is okay to feel whatever you're going to feel, which could be, as we mentioned earlier, a combination of really different emotions. You could be feeling really sad one minute and really happy and elated the next. It's okay to feel whatever it is you feel. And by acknowledging your emotions, by naming them, by identifying them, it will actually help you to manage them that much better. And please remember to be kind to yourself. Let's remember that we've all been through a really, really tough time, particularly students. You guys have had your university experience turned on its head. So it's hard enough being a student at the best of times. So do just remember a bit of self-kindness is really needed as we navigate our way through these changing times. So I'm going to talk you through a short mindfulness grounding technique now. This is something that you can do wherever you like, whenever you like. It's not something that people will particularly notice you're doing. But when things start to feel like they're spiraling and becoming out of control, you're feeling panicky, anxious, this is a really helpful way just to kind of get your feet back on the ground, figuratively, help you to feel a bit more centered and calmer. So I'm going to talk you through this now. So firstly, wherever you are, just make sure that you're comfortable and take a moment to first notice your breath, just your normal breath, breathing in, breathing out. Just pay attention to that for a moment. And then I'd like you to notice up to 5 things that you can see around you and really notice those things. Pay attention to them in a way that you wouldn't normally. And now I'd like you to notice up to 4 things that you can touch or feel, either something that you can reach out and touch, or it might just be the sensation of an item of clothing that you're wearing on your skin. And just pay attention to that sensation for a moment. And now I'd like you to notice up to 3 things that you can hear. And sometimes it's amazing what we can hear in relative silence. It might just be the gentle whirring of your laptop, or you might just hear something from outside, the sound of children playing or a bird singing. Just really pay attention to those things that you can hear. And now turn your attention to your sense of smell and notice up to 2 things that you can smell, either something that perhaps you can immediately smell, or you might have something nearby like a coffee cup that you want to just pay attention to and pay attention to that smell. And finally, just noticing 1 thing that you can taste, or if you don't feel you can taste anything, just maybe notice the sensation that might be in your mouth. Your mouth might feel really dry, for example. And just finally, again, turn your attention back to your breath, just your normal breathing pattern. And that's called grounding. So this is a way of helping you to feel much calmer when things are starting to become overwhelming. So do practice that. Give it a try. You can just reduce it and do maybe just 1 or 2 senses, and it really does help. It really does help to bring you back into yourself and make you feel much more centered. So we're going to think now about self-care, which is so important. And in particular, we need to start with just some very basic building blocks for good mental health. So healthy sleep habits is so important. And that involves, not sleeping too little and not sleeping too much. Exercise and movement is so important obviously for our physical health, but actually really important for our mental health as well. And exercise doesn't need to mean going to the gym, working out every day. It could just mean going for a really kind of casual walk. It could mean making sure that you perhaps walk up steps rather than get a lift, just to allow your body to get some movement. Relaxation and rest is so important too, and this really must be incorporated into our schedule. Particularly as students, I think that there's a tendency to feel like you've just got to really kind of work, but actually without that relaxation and rest, you're going to struggle. Social connections and your support network is so important, and obviously that's something that's really been taken from us during the pandemic. And so, you know, as restrictions are starting to lift, we're going to start to be able to build up those connections even more so. So really take advantage of that. It's so important. Nourishment, so good food, making sure that you've got, you know, you're eating well, you're eating plenty, and that can include comfort food as well when we need that. And acknowledging your feelings as well, really kind of getting in touch with your emotions, checking in with yourself to see how you're doing and how you're feeling. The NHS has come up with, sort of following some research, they came up with these kind of 5 simple ways to well-being. So these are 5 things that are important to bring into your life in order to have a positive sense of well-being. So firstly, connect. And that means connecting with others, talking and listening to others, being there for people, feeling connected to something. And that doesn't mean to say not everyone wants a very big life, social life with lots and lots of friends. It might just be some very small, simple things. It might be feeling connected to your community in a way. So that's really important for our well-being. Being active. So I've already mentioned about how important exercise is. So again, just do what you can. Find something you enjoy. If you're not going to enjoy it, you're probably going to struggle to have the willpower to do it. So it doesn't have to necessarily be the gym. It could just be going for walks or going for a swim, or just finding something that helps to lift your mood. And that, you know, it's a scientific fact that exercise does kind of release happy hormones in us. So it's really important for your mood. Take notice. So here we're going to think a little bit about kind of being mindful. So that little exercise I did with you, the senses check grounding technique, is an example of that. Just really paying attention to things. Remember the simple things in life that you enjoy. I think many of us will take a stroll, a regular walk, for example, perhaps on our way to a shop or to work, and we won't even pay attention to anything around us. All we can think about is our thoughts and our to-do list. But actually just stopping and noticing things around you can be really, really mood enhancing. Keep learning. So obviously as students, this is something that you're already doing, but it's really important to kind of embrace new experiences and find opportunities to really kind of learn and develop yourself and enjoy things. Having said that, there's been a lot of talk over the pandemic about a lot of pressure, I suppose, to kind of be doing lots of things, learning new things. Sometimes that's just not possible. So just take it easy on yourself. You don't have to have learned a new language during the pandemic. If you've just managed to get yourself through the day, then that's enough. But learning is part of our positive well-being. So that's something to really embrace. And give is the final one. So that's where you're giving to others in order to kind of look after your own well-being. It's really important. That could be giving your time to people. It could just be giving your words. It could just be being there for somebody. It doesn't have to be giving money or anything like that. You might want to think about volunteering, perhaps, if you want to do something more formal, or it could just be about being in there for and loved ones and colleagues, fellow students. So those are your 5 ways to well-being. So perhaps it's good to have a little think about that. Try and think about what you can do in each of these 5 areas to make sure that you're getting your 5 a day, I suppose, a bit like we do with fruit and veg. 5 a day, 5 ways to positive well-being. So I think we can certainly acknowledge that things have been pretty tough for some time now. So it's important not to add to that by being tough on yourself. We really, really do need to be kind to ourselves at the moment as we come out of the kind of quite a really long and difficult lockdown. And I think this quote says it all, really. You will never speak to anyone more than you speak to yourself in your head. Be kind to yourself. And this is so, so true. So think about the following. What are you feeling? Check in with yourself. In the same way that you check in with a friend, check in with yourself, acknowledge how you're feeling, and remember that it is okay to feel whatever you're feeling. Remember that you are just as much entitled to support as anybody else. So think about what your needs are, what's going to help you. If you need some support, then ask for it. And think about those thoughts that you're having and whether your thoughts are actually helping you or holding you back. And you might like to think about challenging your thoughts and replacing them with something a little bit more helpful. And I just want to introduce the idea of kind of taking some control of your thoughts. So we quite often have very unhelpful thoughts. And when I say unhelpful, I mean unhelpful to us, to ourselves. And particularly, we might become very harsh towards ourselves, or we might kind of make sweeping judgments about ourselves. Like we might call ourselves a complete failure just because we've failed at one particular thing. So firstly, think about taking your thought to court. Where is the evidence to support this unhelpful thought you're having? So for example, if you are being a bit tough on yourself and telling yourself that you're a complete failure, find the evidence for that. I think you will struggle to find that evidence because nobody is a complete failure. Even if you've failed at things in life, there will be many things that you've succeeded at. Reminding yourself that your thoughts are not facts is really helpful too. Our thoughts are really just opinion and interpretations of things. They're not actual facts. So if you're having a thought about yourself that's not very nice, remember that that is not a fact. That's just your opinion, and there'll be other people who completely disagree with you. And this one's really powerful, this last one here. Think about what you would say to a friend or a loved one in the same situation. If you're being a bit tough on yourself and you're kind of saying nasty things to yourself in your head, which we all do, imagine yourself actually looking into a friend, the eyes of a friend or a loved one, and saying the same thing to them. So you failed a driving test and you're telling yourself that you are utterly useless. Imagine you telling a friend who's just failed their driving test that they're utterly useless. I don't think you would at all. I think you'd be much more supportive and much kinder to your friend in that situation. So do the same to yourself. Give yourself the same kindness that you would to others. And that's a really, really powerful way of challenging our thoughts. So I'm going to talk to you about the support that is available to you at LSBU. So firstly, do bear in mind that your school is there for you. So you can talk to your lecturer, a personal tutor if you have one, module leaders, course director, or school administration. And here are the email addresses that you can email in order to get some support through the school administration, and they can then signpost you. There's lots of support available for your studies. So there's the Get Ahead workshops that is available on the LibGuides website. And these are workshops aimed at getting you kind of set up and ready for your studies. And it's useful throughout your studies, not just when you start. So things like referencing, how to use resources within the library. So really, really would recommend you taking a look at some of those online modules and workshops. The Skills for Learning team at LSBU do some, again, have some wonderful things on their Moodle site, lots of modules, resources for helping you with your study skills. And in particular, I want to let you know about their distance learning module, which is really helpful to help you with managing learning remotely. As I say, we're going to be moving into something a bit more blended, but there might still be some online stuff going on. So it would be important to kind of get yourself skilled up for that and check out that module. Remember that you can apply for extenuating circumstances. That's still an option for you. If things are impacting your studies, then do email extenuating circumstances team and let them know that you're going to have to apply for some ECs. So do just remember that that is an option for you. You can access support via a number of teams. So Skills for Learning, I've already mentioned, they have lots of stuff on their Moodle site, but also they offer one-to-one sessions with students and run workshops around study skills. So do bear in mind that they are there for you. Currently still working remotely, but obviously as we're entering this period of change, that will change moving forward, I'm sure, to something a bit more blended. You've got the library support team there for you, and also student IT support. Disability and dyslexia support team are there for any students that have a diagnosed disability. And that can include mental health conditions, physical health, sensory difficulties, autistic spectrum conditions, specific learning differences like dyslexia. You'd need to provide evidence, so a letter from a GP, in order to register for support, and then the disability team will put reasonable adjustments in place for you for your studies. If you think you have dyslexia but you're not diagnosed, you can also get in touch with the team about being screened for dyslexia. So do bear that in mind as well, and drop them an email if you're interested in finding out more about dyslexia screening. The mental health and wellbeing team I'll tell you more about in just a moment. Don't forget, we've also got the careers hub. We have a multi-faith chaplaincy, which they're available to students of all or no faith. The student advice team as well offer an amazing service, helping students who might be struggling financially or having debt worries, money worries, and housing problems. And the Student Life Centre is our kind of hub for all of the services. They are able to answer most student queries, and if they cannot, they will expertly signpost you to the services that are available to you. So the Student Life Centre is a wonderful team who are there for you. So do reach out and access this support as it is there for you. The team that I work for, the Mental Health and Wellbeing team, so we are here to offer confidential support and advice to any students that have something on their mind. You might be experiencing some stress, you might be going through some emotional difficulties, or you might have some mental health problems. Come and chat to us. We can refer students to counselling if that's appropriate, and also other support services either within the university or externally. We could link you in perhaps with with your GP, or with services outside, or with charitable organisations that might be helpful. We can also talk to you about coping strategies and help you with learning ways to manage and cope. And we've got a lot of different self-help resources that we can share with you. So do come and chat to us if you would like to find out a bit more about looking after yourself, and if you'd like a space just to get things off your chest. To book an appointment, you just email studentwellbeing@lsbu.ac.uk, and someone will then get in touch with you to talk about booking that appointment for you. We are currently offering appointments over the phone or Microsoft Teams, as we are not back in the office working on campus yet. We're still working remotely. However, obviously, as things change, we will be able to offer a more flexible and blended approach. So there will be some in-person availability, as well as the telephone and Teams appointments that will continue. I'd like to let you know about this excellent program called SilverCloud, which all LSBU students can access completely for free. It's a secure self-help program. There are a number of different programs to choose from. It's based on cognitive behavioural therapy, or CBT, which you may have heard of. That is a type of therapy that's based on looking at our thoughts and how they impact on the way we feel. So when I mentioned earlier about unhelpful thoughts, that's very much something that when you're having CBT therapy, focuses on those unhelpful thoughts and how can you challenge them. So the programs that you might find really helpful are things like managing stress, anxiety, sleeping problems, depression, and building resilience. And there's lots of others on there as well. There's also resources and modules on there relating specifically to COVID. So I really would thoroughly recommend it. You can access it securely on your phone by downloading an app, or on your PC, your laptop, your tablet, and you just sign in using your LSBU email address and your password, just at the link that's at the bottom of this slide here. So do check that out. You don't need to come and see the mental health and wellbeing team to access that resource. It is available to all students for free. So here are some other recommended wellbeing resources for you. So the NHS Good Thinking website has lots of resources around things like managing stress, sleeping problems, worry, low mood. Also, there are links on that website to apps, helpful wellbeing apps that you can download for free if you're particularly for London residents. So that's a really useful website, and I would thoroughly recommend you take a look at that. There's also a website called Student Space that's been set up by Student Minds, which is an organisation that focuses on student mental health. And this Student Space website was set up when the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, with lots of helpful advice, tips and resources for students coping through this particularly challenging time that we've been experiencing. So there's a wealth of resources on there. I'd like to just direct your attention to a mindfulness website called Be Mindful. If you're interested in practicing meditation and mindfulness, a bit like the grounding technique that I did with you, then do check out Be Mindful, and you'll be able to access guided meditations, mindfulness meditations through that. I also want to let you know about this app called Mindshift, which is completely free for you to just download onto your phone, and that has lots of relaxation resources, breathing exercises, calming relaxation techniques, but also a section all about unhelpful thinking styles and helping you to recognize where your thoughts are unhelpful and helping you to perhaps challenge those and come up with something that's much more helpful to you. So I would recommend that app to you as well. So you just go to that link and you should be able to download that onto your phone. So finally, I just want to finish up today by saying that it's so important sometimes just to remember to breathe. You know, it's been a tough time. It really has. Things are changing in a positive way, but as I've discussed, with that comes potential for anxiety, for feeling a bit overwhelmed. There's going to be a bit of reflection that we're probably all going to need to do just to kind of process what we've just all been through. And also, let's acknowledge the fact that, you know, it is going to be a new normal. Things are not going to be returning straight back to how they were before the pandemic, for some time. So we've still got to navigate some strange times ahead of us. So let's just remember to just breathe. So this is a little exercise to help you just calm down your breath. And so the moving image on the screen, I'd like you to breathe in as the flower pattern expands and then breathe out as it reduces. So let's just do that for a moment. Breathe in. And breathe out. And then just keep moving your breath along with the movement of the shape. Okay, and sometimes all we need to do is just slow down our breath a little, just to help us feel calmer. And that brings me to the end of today's session. I'd like to wish you all the very best as we move forward, and do remember you're not alone, and you can reach out for support from a number of different teams within the university should you need to come and talk to somebody or get some advice. So take care, everybody.